Were you impressed with your defense?
With the energy and the attitude, yeah. You know, I mean, again, it's obviously usually defenses are a little bit ahead just because of the simplicity of what we do. I love the energy. I love the effort. We'll go back and see what we really, some things you can correct here and there. But I tell you what, the front guys I thought did a really good job.
What about offensively?
Well, they did. I mean, but again, we put them on the 2-yard line to try to really test to see, what it's all about. The other day it was the offense kind of coming out, even on the third down situations. They had some big plays, but we put them in some tough situations. And when things don't go your way to start with, you got to find a way. And that's all I wanted to see him do. Was to find a way to generate some momentum, create some energy, and then that's the way the game rolls.
What was your quarterback situation now? Just talk a little bit about each of those three guys.
Well, it's really tough. We probably got to go sit down and really kind of go through with a fine-tooth comb. To me, the big thing with all of them is just about decision-making, and we got to do a better job of making sure we're making great decisions. It's okay to pull the ball down and run that thing for 2 or 3 yards, or even run out of bounds for -2, as opposed to trying to force some things. And when you have a competition battle, everybody wants to make the plays instead of just doing the plays and the things that come your way. So I think there's a kind of a balance there. That everybody wants to talk about the quarterbacks and things like that. The reality is you got to start with being able to run the football. And if you can't run it, there's no way the quarterback's going to have an opportunity.
Is there one guy who's ahead of the other ones, or has impressed you more?
No, I do think you see a little bit of the leadership of Hayden. The guy he'd been in there more. He's obviously had last year a little bit more time to be on the field and some things like that. And Ross is still maybe a little bit behind in that sense. But some things that Ross can do, obviously making up with some athleticism. When they're not live, it does take the quarterback run element out of some things. So it maybe hamstrings them just a hair bit. So again, that's the toughest position. That's the one that it's got to have the most growth. But that's the one we'll continue to focus on.
That's the one that has to have the most growth in general, or for this team because of what happened last year?
No, I just think in general. When you're putting a new offense in, when you're doing some different things, as you're an offensive lineman, you live in your world, and you got to be really good at what you're doing. If you're a wideout, you got to live in your world. If you're a tailback, you're living in your world. If you're a quarterback, you got to know the entire world, and you got to know what the front's doing. You got to change protections. You got to get the guys lined up. Not nearly as critical on defense as the middle linebacker, but I try to say the same thing. If the middle linebacker doesn't know it all, if there's a situation, you're going to be in trouble.
The last few years, we had a situation where every week supposedly was a competition to see who would start. I mean, do you want to just pick a guy and have him be the guy unless something drastic happens?
Yeah. I want someone to know that we've got confidence in him, and I think that's what we'll continue to do. We want to put him in these situations now, and even if it goes into fall camp, we'll put them in those situations to see how they compete. But ultimately, as we get closer to the game, we'll have a guy that, hey, this is who we're going with, and making sure they understand that. We got the utmost confidence in them. I don't want them always looking over their shoulder, but I want them to know that, hey, if there's expectations in the quarterback room. There's an expectation in every room, but in the quarterback room in general, I mean, you got to be the man, and you got to know it all.
So obviously, you're not going to be close to naming a starting quarterback until fall camp.
I would say, unless something changes here in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But I would imagine that fall camp is going to be big. I want to see how these guys lead in the summer, how they kind of take the groups under their wings, and can we grow throughout the summer, being able to do some football without coaches.
You coached linebackers for a long time. What are your thoughts on this group of linebackers that you've got here and how they're adjusting?
I think we're thin. I think numbers-wise, we're thin right now at linebacker. But again, it's kind of simplified to allow the linebackers to play fast, and that's what we've got to continue to do. I try not to focus on them too much. I try to focus on the other areas. I go to meetings with the quarterbacks and the offensive line. Focus-wise, I think we've got some ability, but I think we need some depth, whether it's our guys that are getting better or the guys that are coming in.
Moved Gilbert there today just for a look. Is that just?
Well, that's a hybrid position for us, and that's one of those spots right there that's in the recent history we've had a lot of success with guys who are athletic, guys that can play in space, guys that maybe have been high school quarterbacks at some point in time. It's just kind of unique that he has some of those qualities.